A pilot lines up for landing. Ahead of him, a runway carved into a mountain. No space, no backup plan, just rock on one side and a drop into nothing on the other. He has seconds to decide. Land perfectly or disappear into the Himalayas. This is one of the most dangerous runways ever built. And pilots don't fear it because it's difficult. They fear it because one mistake cannot be corrected. But here's what makes it even stranger. Flights still land here daily. In fact, it's the only connection between remote mountain life and the outside world. So why would anyone design an airport like this in the first place? The answer starts with geography that refuses to cooperate with humans. Deep in the Himalayas lies a small airstrip that looks almost impossible from above. The Tenzing Hillary Airport. Most airports are built on flat land. Long runways, wide margins, room for error. This one has none of that. Instead, it sits on the edge of a cliff, surrounded by mountains so tall they block entire weather systems. There was no engineering dream here at first, only necessity. Because the region it serves has no roads that can reliably connect it to the outside world. So engineers had one choice: build into the mountain or stay isolated forever. They carved a runway just a few hundred meters long. That's less than a quarter of what most commercial jets need. And to make things worse, the runway doesn't sit flat. It's sloped uphill. That means planes naturally slow down as they land. A clever idea, but also a terrifying one. Because everything depends on perfect execution. There is no extra space, no second chance, and no forgiveness. But landing is only half the danger. The real challenge begins long before the wheels touch the ground. Because reaching this airport is where most flights already start to feel the pressure. The Himalayas create some of the most unstable flying conditions on Earth. Weather systems don't behave normally here. They collide, they shift, they disappear without warning. A clear sky can turn into dense fog in minutes. Wind currents don't flow in a straight line. They twist between peaks like invisible rivers of force. For pilots approaching the Tenzing Hillary Airport, instruments help, but not enough. Because instruments don't see mountains in real time the way human judgment does. And here, judgment is everything. The aircraft must descend through a narrow corridor surrounded by rock walls on both sides. Too high, and you miss the approach entirely. Too low, and you hit terrain before the runway even appears. Too fast, and stopping becomes impossible. Too slow, and the plane loses lift and unstable air. And there is a critical limitation most people don't realize. Once the final approach begins, turning back is often not an option. You are committed, fully, completely. And that's when the pressure becomes real. Because now it's not about flying. It's about survival decisions made in seconds. But here's the part that surprises most people. Despite everything, crashes are not constant here. So how does anyone actually manage to land safely in a place like this? The answer lies in discipline that most passengers never see. Pilots who fly into this airport are not ordinary commercial pilots. They are specially trained for mountain operations. And even then, many never attempt it. Training includes understanding how wind behaves around peaks, how air density changes at altitude, and how quickly conditions can shift during descent. But even experience has limits here, because no simulator fully captures what it feels like to approach a runway that looks like it ends in space. Aircraft used are also carefully selected. Small, highly responsive planes designed for short takeoff and landing. These machines are built for precision, not comfort. And still, every landing demands full concentration. There is no autopilot saving the moment, no system correcting the final approach, just human skill against geography. The runway itself adds another layer of tension. Its upward slope is helpful in slowing the aircraft, but visually, it creates an illusion. From the air, It looks shorter than it actually is. That forces pilots to rely heavily on experience rather than perception. And when visibility drops, operations stop completely. Because here, guessing is not an option. But even with all these precautions, every landing carries the same silent truth. This is one of the few places where the margin between success and disaster is measured in meters, not kilometers. And yet, despite everything, this airport is not abandoned. It is active, busy, essential, which leads to the question that defines its existence. Why risk it at all? The answer is not ambition. It is isolation. The region served by the Tenzing-Hillary Airport is home to remote mountain communities and one of the most famous trekking routes in the world. Mount Everest Base Camp lies beyond it. Without this airstrip, reaching the area would take days of dangerous travel on foot through unstable terrain. So the airport becomes more than infrastructure. It becomes a lifeline. That demand forces operations to continue despite the risk. But over time, engineers and aviation authorities have refined how it operates. Flights only run in strict weather windows. Visibility requirements are extremely tight. Only experienced pilots are cleared for landing, and operations shut down immediately when conditions turn unsafe. These restrictions reduce accidents, but they don't remove the core reality. This airport was never designed to be comfortable. It was designed to be possible. There is a difference. And here's what makes it even more thought-provoking. This is not the only airport built in extreme conditions. Across the world, there are runways on islands, deserts, and mountain ridges that push aviation to its limits. Which raises a bigger question. How far are we willing to push engineering just to reach places that nature never intended us to go? The runway at Lukla is not famous because it is dangerous. It is famous because it is necessary. It shows what happens when geography and human need collide. Mountains don't adjust for convenience. Weather doesn't wait for perfect timing. And engineering doesn't always get ideal conditions. So instead, we adapt. We carve runways into cliffs. We train pilots for impossible approaches. And we accept risk as part of access. Because sometimes, the choice is not between safe and unsafe. It is between connection and isolation. And in this case, risk is the price of connection. And if you think this runway is extreme, wait until you see the airport built on an island where planes land directly between ocean waves and mountain winds. A place where one miscalculation doesn't just end a flight, it erases it. But that's a story for next time.